Ecamm Fam. Ecamm Fam is the name of the jam. This is a jam with the Ecamm Fam. Ecamm Fam is the name of the jam. This is a jam with the Ecamm Fam. This is a jam with the Ecamm Fam. It's a jam with the Ecamm Fam. Ecamm Fam is the name of the jam.
Hello,
What's
everyone.
up, party people?
Hello.
Welcome to Friday Demo. And today, Doc Rock is on vacation, so myself, Paul, and Tatiana are going to be running today's live demo. So if you have any questions or comments, please make sure to put a Q colon in front of your questions within the chat. And we're here to just have a good time as we learn Ecamm together. So how's everyone doing today? How are you doing, Tatiana?
Well, besides the giant knot in my stomach, the accelerated heart rate, and all the excitement, I am doing fabulously. And to answer Eden, yes, I am making my demo debut. And if any of you guys were on the show last week, I'm on the show listening to Doc talking, and he's like, yeah, we're in Japan. Lewis and Paul have the show covered. He goes, unless Tati wants to do it, because he calls me Tati, not Tatiana. And this is me. Ecamm. Me? Oh my gosh. So here I am, everybody. All thanks to Doc's lighting a fire under there. So thank you. It's really wonderful to be here with you, Lewis and Paul, and everybody joining us in the chat.
Oh,
Doc
we're
has a
very
habit
happy
of
to
doing
have
those
you.
things.
What was that, Paul?
I said Doc has a habit of doing those things.
Yeah, that's
Like,
called
surprise.
voluntolding. You know, you don't volunteer, you get voluntold to do what's going on. So, but a lot of times that's the only thing that we need, just that little push right off the ledge so that we can get moving, and then we'll see exactly how we do it ourselves. So this is not, Paul and I's first rodeo, but you've also been, well versed in the online creator and live streaming universe, so to speak. So the reason why he voluntold you is because he knows that you can do it.
Well, I really appreciate the vote of confidence because it's one of those things. I teach at a university, public speaking communications, and I'm always telling my students, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, put yourself out there. And I was like, this is scary enough that I need to do it. Like, this is just that right amount of, I'm so excited, I'm so scared, I'm so excited, I'm so scared. So here I am, ready to share some knowledge with the crew with you guys today.
Cool.
As Doc says, always be ready.
That's right.
Mhm.
ABR.
You never know.
And how about you, Paul? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a crazy morning.
End week.
Today was Today was the day to order iPhones, and so because I lease it, I was able to do kind of a pre-order, and I set my alarm. I thought for 4:45. Because that's when the store opens at 8:00, which is 5:00 Eastern or Pacific time. I set my alarm for 4:15, And so the alarm goes off, scares the crap out of me, and then I'm like going, "I don't wanna get up yet." So I hit snooze, and then it went off again because didn't realize I hit snooze. I thought I turned it off. It went off again, and I thought, "I don't need this, I'll be awake." I turned it off, and the next thing I knew, I woke up at 5:15, but
Oh boy.
a little late, but I got my order placed, so
I
it
actually
was
think
like,
that the snooze button is the only actual form of time travel that we will ever acquire, because
yeah.
it is like you see the time, you press the snooze, you blink, and it's been an hour afterwards, and you're like, what happened to that hour? And it just snooze gobbled it up. So,
Um,
all right,
Homesick
cool. So,
Homesick brought up a fact about my voice being louder, so I just changed my side, so let me know
Gotcha.
if it's still
It
loud.
could also just be
Or
that powerful presence that Paul has in his voice. A little
mhm.
different than mine over here.
And mine, the reverberance that comes down into it, could make all the difference. So, all right.
it's
So
a curse.
today we were gonna go over some things on the live demo, right? Tatiana, do you want to get things started?
I would love to. Thank you very much, Mr. Camera Junkie. The topic for today is profiles, which I'm sure lots of you guys have explored them or at least wanted to explore them and wondered how you might use them. So I thought, why don't we start off with a definition of what exactly is a profile within Ecamm? And the analogy that is really helpful for me in understanding all of Ecamm and the hierarchy is that if we think of Ecamm as our house, then our scenes are the rooms inside of that house. And then our overlays are the contents of each one of those rooms, like the furniture and the lamps and the carpet and the TV. And I can't remember who first said that analogy, but it always stuck with me. And that's how I was helpful to me to understand. So,
It
profiles
was
then
Diana.
within that analogy is that the profiles is like having a different house. So, boom, all of a sudden, we are multiple property owners when we make multiple profiles. And so hopefully that analogy helps everyone get clear on what those things are. It's like different profiles, different houses for different things. So some people have their regular home and then they have their vacation home or their work retreat space. So if we think of it as different properties, then I think it's helpful. And then I wanted to ask you guys, how exactly do you use profiles? Like why do you need them? How are they helpful to you? And I'll chime in with how I use them as well. But what are the reasons that you would have multiple profiles set up in Ecamm?
I wanna add one little point. One of the things that, um, may also help is if you think of profiles themselves as a neighborhood, so in the neighborhood, you have all kinds of different houses, and then each individual profile is a house. So it's basically the way that I look at it is each show that I do, because I do several different shows, I occasionally do this one, but I have, a stream that recordings that I do. Um, I do a stream 3 times a week into the Ecamm Academy with Val. Uh, we do some other things. So every one of those quote shows is a house. And so
Right.
as Tatiana said, within that house is all the different scenes that are associated with that. So I kind of look at my profiles as I have one for each show.
Right.
Hmm.
That makes
And
total sense.
The way that I use profiles is very clear and like concise, because there's different shows that I'm involved with. So, one of them being my weekly live stream, shameless plug, every Saturday night, Eastern Standard Time. And what I have there is that I have all my scenes for my multiple camera setup set up completely with basically a run of show. So my scenes are all set up in order so that, yeah, even though we consider that each profile is like a house, the scenes of the house end up being like the different rooms and the different stages that you go into a home, right? Because the first thing
Mm,
that you do at a home is you get to the porch, right? Or to the door,
right.
and that's kind of
Welcome.
like our intro, right? When we were in black and white before we started, that's the porch, so to speak, scene, and that's the first room that we were in. And then the next one was the living room, because that's usually the first room in the majority of people's houses, which is where we're all hanging out right now, right? And we're all conversing. So having that set up on my live stream keeps it completely separate, right, with all the assets and everything, than when I produce the the Flow podcast every Tuesday. Because when I'm doing that, it's not about me. It's not about multiple cameras. It's about my guest and hosting it, putting, all the effort. So the entire setup of that house, that porch, that living room, and all the things according are completely different, set up to cater to the podcast. So all of the effects and the colors and the setup, the lower thirds and everything that's set up, it's completely compartmentalized to each profile for each show that I do.
And
Right.
I'll add on to that too, is like, when you get into the neat thing with profile houses are if you need to add a new room, you just do Command N. It's a real simple build. But, like if you need to put a camera overlay on, that's kind of like, you can picture that as you putting a TV in a room. If you want to have a guest, you can have a chair. That's, kind of your guest overlays. The other thing to keep in mind, and one of the reasons why Ecamm allowed us to go with profiles, is when you have lots of scenes and lots of things you know, in one profile, basically, Ecamm has no idea what you are going to want to do and when you are going to want to do it. So
Right.
Ecamm has to keep track of all those assets, and it has to be ready to bring those, to life at the push of a button, basically. So if you have an older Mac or having performance issues or something like that, take a look at your profile, because if you have a profile with 900 scenes in it and there's videos in there and all this other stuff, that's going to contribute to your problem of bogging your system down. Because as I said, Ecamm doesn't know what you're going to do. So it has to be ready to do what you decide to do at a moment's notice. And that takes processor and resources and all that stuff to keep track of all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, all
That's a
great
really
points.
good
And I
point.
want to make a mention that if you do have a question, like Callie's question who just came in, Callie, hopefully I'm saying your name properly, keep them coming because we want to address any unanswered questions a little bit later on. But please keep them coming, of course, because we want to be able to make this an interactive discussion between all of us. I will add the way that I use profiles myself is when I teach my courses, there's a couple of different classes where the students are presenting live. One of them is a podcast class. So for that, I'm not in my real background. I have a green screen set up and I have it set up in a particular look and feel. So I'll have one profile for the podcast class. Then when they deliver their online mediated speeches, I have another profile for that as well. So that's one way that really helps me, different from when the other way that I use it is it's different when you're doing a live stream than when you're doing a pre-recorded video. So I'll have different profiles set up in those instances as well, in addition to the ways that you guys have mentioned. And then another one I could think of is horizontal versus vertical. So you can have different profiles set up for if you're depending on if you're going to do something for Instagram versus you're going to do something on YouTube. So that's another way that I could think of where having profiles would be really helpful, in addition to working with people like yourself, Luis, when you're doing remote production and being able to share those things with different people. And there are a lot of resources in the Ecamm library for any of you guys who want to learn more. There are videos from Adrian, from Alec Johnson, from Doc, from Eliseo and India did a quick one too. Kirk Nugent and Marshall Fox. At least those are the ones I have watched and have seen on it. I'm sure Anna and Fulgens have talked about it as part of building blocks along the way as well. So we do have tons of resources for everybody to check afterwards.
And if you go into support.ecamm.com and do a search for profiles, you'll get written stuff plus also links to videos. So there's lots of resources out there.
Fabulous.
Okay.
And would you like to try live demo mode? And
Yeah, let's go.
see, first of all, I have to put on live demo mode, which is under options and live demo mode. So on my screen now, you should be able to see everything, right, guys?
Yep.
Okay, fabulous. So you should be able to see my Ecamm menus here. And there is a command right on the menu here for profile. And you'll first see the new blank profile. That will be the first one that comes up here, right? So that is just a completely blank slate, completely empty when you need to start from scratch. And certainly I have done that. Then there's also the option to make a copy. You can duplicate your current profile, which is very helpful if you want to, say, set something up as a template. So let's say I'm so happy with the way this is, it's just going to make some minor changes for another one. You can actually have a backup copy that you've duplicated an exact one, and you can name it a template. I think that's a great tip from Alec that I got. And then the next one is being able to export the current profile. And I like to use this personally as backup. So I have it saved in my Dropbox files on the cloud to be able to have backups in case anything happens to these files. Then you can also delete your current profile or rename your current profile. And then under here, you'll have the list of current ones. I have to do a little bit of cleanup because I have 2 default shows. But then I have different things for public speaking where Tatiana teaches with a map background, or when I decided to refocus, or the month of September I was doing this thing. And I also have a profile for vertical. So that's just a little bit of how the menu on profiles works. And I'll kick it back to you guys for any other thoughts on the menu, if there's anything I'm forgetting.
One thing, if you are live, you can't change, you can't make adjustments to profiles. Once you're live, you're locked into that specific profile. So just keep that in mind, that if you decide, oh, I want to, you can add scenes and do stuff like that, but you can't shift scenes. You can't go to, grab something from another scene and drag it, or another profile and drag it into this, the profile that you're in when you're live, because everything is locked down at that point.
That's a
And
good point to mention, Paul, because those of us who are earlier in our journey, that might be something we think we could do.
Yeah, and talking about locks, always make sure that once you have a scene the way that you like it, you lock it. Because sometimes while we're trying to fix other things and adjust other things, we could accidentally shift elements and move cameras completely around. The reason why I mention it is because it's happened. It happens to me.
I do that all the time if I'm trying to rearrange the main window of Ecamm window on my Mac, and the scene is not locked. Instead of moving the window around, I'm shifting the scene around in the window, and it's like, okay, that's not what I wanted to have happen.
But then I guess another thing that we can mention is that, just like Tatiana was saying about the template, right? And being able to export. If you've built out a scene, right? Or a profile that you're happy with, and you're like, I like this as my base, but then as a lot of us like to tinker around, then it's a great thing to create that template, export it, and maybe even zip file it, like compress it so that you just have it in a safe location, and knowing that no matter what happens, including moving to a completely different computer, you can take that profile and have the building blocks set up, the great foundation to get started. But it's also your backup. So
Yep.
it gives you the ability to tinker at your heart's content, and just change everything around as much as possible, so that you can really see the power of Ecamm and all the things that you can do with it.
Another thing
Right.
which clicked the light bulb with me is when you create a new profile, when you say new profile, it creates a new profile, but what it does is it resets all your preferences, everything back to factory. It's like factory reset. So you're
Yes.
starting at ground zero. So what I
Mhm.
recommend people do is, once you get, you've gone in and you've set your preferences and all this stuff the way you want, like, not to mute or all those things and preferences that you pick. Once you get that all set, back up that, or make a copy of that and call it base profile or master profile or whatever. And then in the future, whenever you want to create a new show or create a new profile, just go into that quote master profile, duplicate that, and then start changing. That way you don't have to go in and reset all those defaults and all that other stuff, which we always forget to do until we go to do something that needs it. And it's like, oh crud, I forgot to do that. So it helps you go in the future, as you start building. And you can always go in and tweak your master profile as things, sort of change for you or new releases or something comes out, but you've always got that profile as your starting point. So, you're starting at 10,000 feet rather than, ground level.
And I'm curious how everybody, our fam in the chat, how else do you guys use profiles? Are there things that we haven't mentioned? While you guys popped that in chat, one thing that just came into my mind is Martin McKenna, who's in our community, has shared Ecamm profiles, and I remember downloading one and for free. It's very generous, openly sharing these because it takes a lot of time to create. There were some around the holidays, and he's done other themes and things. So, for me, it was also helpful to look at them and see how did he build them, and just to even understand what's creatively possible was pretty awesome. So, I'm curious, if there are other ways that people have implemented profiles. I'm thinking also, if you're the kind of person who wants to design profiles, like perhaps you want to sell them as well, right? There could be people who want to purchase. I mean, certainly it's so nice to have things already done for you. Or if you do custom work in Ecamm for folks as a designer, that's obviously a really great way to use profiles too, or even if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah. A lot of people will create profile. People don't want to create their own profiles. They want somebody to do it for them. So we have a lot of people in the communities that will build a show out for you and build the profile and everything like that. And then they'll send it to you. The thing to keep in mind when you create a profile and you're getting ready to send it to you, it duplicates everything except for fonts because they're copyrighted and movies because they also can be copyrighted. So if you're creating a profile for somebody that you want to share with or whatever, you want to make sure that when you send it, you look at the fonts that you have, and if they're free fonts, you want to make sure to include them. If they're not part of the standard, any kind of special fonts, if they're part of the base font library, then you don't have to worry about it because they're going to be on that other person's Mac. But there are any special fonts that you're using, you want to make sure that you also send them that, again, if they're not purchased and copyrighted. And then any movies, videos, yeah, um, MP files, anything like that, any type of motion files that are part of that profile, you need to send those to them separately so that they have those
Mhm.
because fonts and videos do not move with the profile.
By the way, I want to show off my Ecamm mug here to you guys. This way. There
The
it is.
pint glass.
There we go. Yeah, not mug. Thank you. A pint glass. Thank you for that. This is from I was on a winning streak on Anna and Fulgens on ENN, and one of my winnings right here. I love this one. So I thought this would be great to highlight today. And also I need some water because you get extra nervous when you do this and you need to stay hydrated. But this is a really good segue, Paul, what you're mentioning, because what I also wanted to mention, what is included and excluded when we copy things over in profile. So what I know is what gets copied over is scenes, overlays, graphics, camera effects, sound effects,
Which
platform
includes
settings,
music.
which sound effects and music. Okay, good point to add that. Platform settings. So if you've chosen the stream size for Amazon Live or LinkedIn, all those things will carry over. And I had a question. If you've set your camera to green screen, will that carry over if you copy a profile? Do you guys know? I wasn't sure if it
Yeah.
carries over.
Yes.
Yeah, that falls under the camera effects, which is
Okay.
also why we also reference them saying that it's good to sometimes duplicate a profile. And I think that's probably one of my biggest use cases is that I do have multiple cameras, but on top of that, with the camera effects window in Ecamm, you have the ability to change the color temperature, the brightness, the sharpness, and a couple of other things, including making it black and white and even adding LUTs. So all that through the camera effects would be transferred in the profile so that you make sure that that's why you would duplicate it so that you don't have to go in there and meticulously go through all of those camera settings for all of the different cameras. And as a camera junkie myself, I have 4 cameras that I have, color corrected for my setup.
Yes.
So it would be 4 times all those settings every time that I would create a profile from scratch.
And
And
for our
Callie's
for
Callie brought up a question when she said, "Does music move with the profile when sharing?" And, you know, that I can confirm. And one of the things that happened that so I know this is probably a year ago, something like that. Fulgens had created a profile and stuff that he was going to share with me for something. So he sent me the profile. And this was before I think I was still on an iPad. So it could be closer to 2 years ago. Um, anyway, or not an iPad, but my MacBook. Anyway, he sent me the profile. I went to load it and it was massive and it bogged down my computer. We actually they fixed this problem, but I had to get I think Ken or Glenn involved. They were on working with me trying to get it sorted out because my Mac was just dying. And it ended up that he had a whole huge music library in that profile. And so when he sent me that library, not only did he send me the scenes that he was mentioned to send me, he sent me his entire music library too. And like I said, it was massive. So be careful with that because you may want to filter out some things. If you haven't
Mhm.
cleaned it up specifically for that, you may want to make sure that you're not going to send them stuff that you don't want to send them. Because if you have lots of music in Ecamm, it's going to go with it.
Gotcha.
I
Well,
mean,
great points, right? Important things for us to remember. So that's what's included. And I'll just say that again: scenes, overlays, graphics, camera effects, sound effects, and music, and all of our platform settings. So is there anything that doesn't copy over? If we were copy one profile
yeah,
and open it up
fonts
again?
and videos, which includes animated overlays. All of that stuff will not go with it. So if you have animated overlays, you have videos, any kind of video stuff that you're doing, maybe a video background or anything that's video, motion, all that type of stuff, you need to send that separately to them along with the profile because it won't be there. And when they try to use it, it's going to say it can't find the file.
Mhm.
Yep.
So
And it kind of
obviously, if the
freezes.
person has the font on their computer, if we have the same fonts, yes, it will work, of course. But if they don't,
Yep.
will 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 they know that it didn't work? Like, is there when I open up Keynote, for example, on one device that doesn't have the font, it will say missing fonts. Will the person on the receiving end know that the fonts aren't carrying over, or is it just gonna pick a
No,
default
it's
font?
it's going to try to substitute something. Yeah, it
Yeah, it's just
doesn't.
gonna add anything generic.
Yeah,
Okay,
and like I
so
said,
something for us
if
to be
it's a
aware of.
yeah, if it's a standard font, you don't have to worry about it. It's only those fonts that are, you know, that you've imported, downloaded from some other site that you have to worry about. A major portion of a lot of people, that's not going to be an issue because they don't do anything with special fonts. But those that do have special fonts who are using special fonts, that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's like in the scenarios like you had mentioned before, Tati, of if you're deciding or thinking about creating profiles for other, maybe for sale and things like that,
Mhm.
that's when you would have to figure out those things in maybe a discovery call with the said client to see if maybe they actually have already a particular font or typeface that they're using as their brand signature, so that then you could import that as well and make that part of the profile that you're creating. But it's just to keep knowledge that if you are doing these things and you're creating the profile to be shared, that you would also need to include within the folder the assets that they're going to need, so that when Ecamm opens up and says, I can't find this file, it will ask it for this particular name of that file would be within, the finding feature. And that same file name would be in the folder that you transferred over to your client or.
Yep. I mean, it's
Okay.
like Val and I do a stream in the Ecamm Academy, 3 times a week, and she created the profile. She created all the scenes and everything, and then she sent me a copy of the profile so that on the days that I host it, I have it, the look and
Perfect.
feel and everything is the same. So when we did that, she sent me all the video files that were associated with it. And then there was one font that was she had downloaded, and then she sent me that font and I installed it and everything is fine.
Good to go.
So that's another way that's really good. If you're doing a show with somebody else or something like that, create the profile, all that stuff, and send it to them. So just in case something should, you never know. One day the other person may need to do the show or something like that, or maybe you trade off. That way you look exactly the same. Your scenes and everything are the same. So you can share profiles that way. And
Absolutely.
if you have
Very
a
good.
profile somebody sent you and you want to bring it in, the easiest way to do it is just double click on the profile and it will add it to Ecamm.
Absolutely. Right. There's nothing. It's as simple as wherever the file is stored on your computer, double click it. It will automatically open up. Just open it up without Ecamm being open. If you try to open it up when you're already in Ecamm, like I did today, it'll actually give you an error message that Ecamm is already running. You need to close that out before you open it. At least that was true when I did one file type versus the .profile type. So I may have to get back to you guys on exactly that. But how awesome is Valerie? Always, so team oriented and so wonderful. And I also want to share some love for Aubrey in the chat, who is saying nice things about us, saying, hey, all, they're doing fantastic job. Let's hit that like button. And I will say, if you're getting something valuable, you're learning something today, or anything positive out of this experience, please do hit that like button. It is very helpful for searchability features, but also just to help us feel good, right? That this is being liked by you guys, because that's, after all, that's why we're here, wanting to be of service and help each other out. And then Kali, I think she told me in a previous message that it's pronounced Kali, so I'm going to go with that, but tell me if I'm wrong. She summed it up.
Just like
What's
Molly.
excluded? It is Kali.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Great. So she's saying, got it. Fonts and videos are what's excluded, and that includes any animated overlays. They won't transfer over when sharing profiles, so be mindful of oversharing content that'll be heavy file size, like music libraries. Thank you. Yes, Kali, great job summarizing. Lovely.
Yeah.
And hey,
Well,
Michelle's
another
in the
thing-
house. Sup, fam?
Well, I do want to add this to that, because when it comes to creating profiles and doing things like that, there are a lot of times when you're doing things for other people that they have multiple cameras themselves, right? So another awesome feature of Ecamm that goes hand in hand with this is basically the camera switcher window, or the ability to set your A/B cameras up ahead of time. So let's say you're setting up a profile for someone and yet you don't know what cameras they have, right? Ecamm in my profile, while I'm building it, only has access to the information that I'm giving it. So if I connect my A6100 and then maybe my other, like iPhone as a secondary camera, then that's what it's going to have as far as cameras available. So if I start setting up the scenes with those in place, then those aren't the cameras that the said client or the end user of that profile are going to be using. So you're able to set up all of these scenes with camera A, B, and C, right? So that when they get the profile, all the cameras will be set up within the scenes correctly. And the only thing that they have to do is actually go to the camera switcher window in the A/B side and select which is going to be camera A, which one's going to be camera B, and which one's going to be camera C, so on and so forth, in their setup. And they have full control. But then when they get back to the scenes and the profile that you created, all the cameras will already be set and ready to go according to the hardware that they're using.
Nice, Lise. You're kind of bringing this to a whole new level here for more advanced use. And if anybody doesn't know what camera A, B, and all that stuff means, if you're inside Ecamm in your camera switcher, which is the menu that shows you all of your
Do you wanna
camera
show it?
squares, I
Just
certainly
go into
can. Why
demo real
not?
quick.
All right, which is under options. Click live demo mode so that you guys can see. All right, and confirm with me, Lise. Good?
Yeah. So that you can see the
Okay,
camera switcher
so
window there.
one of your menus is going to be this camera switcher. And I know depending on what screen you're on, this might be really small to see here, but in this panel, camera switcher panel, you have all sources, and then you have this here. So I have my main camera, this one here, which is my Sony ZV-E10, set up as camera A. And then I have a second, a small webcam Logitech set up as camera B. So it's basically like holding them as placeholders so that this camera is always going to be camera A versus having to program them manually in different scenes when you're working on it. So, and Ecamm did add the ability to have many more than just A and B. So you see, for example, I have C and D. And the reason I have these here, camera C, it's still my cam link, but what I want to do is make it so that it's more zoomed in. So it looks like I have a third camera angle. I just haven't gotten there yet, but you'll see A, C, and D all look the same right now. But what I want to do is add one that's like a super tight shot. So if I click, let's see if it will work. If I do zoom and pan, that will make this camera much cropped in a lot tighter. So you can, even though it's the same exact camera, it's my Sony ZV-E10 all connected through that cam link. Camera C essentially gives me a copy of that, and I can do certain things going wider. Or if we go to camera D, I could say, let's say I'm going to make this black and white. So that just made me black and white right there. I think because did I not choose camera D? Let's see. I don't know why it's doing it on camera D. Those changes are being impacted even though I think I'm on camera A. But in any case, that is a little bit of a demo just so you know what we're talking about when we're referencing different cameras.
And Michelle brought up a point too, with the camera switcher. If you're using multiple cameras, every time you boot your computer, you restart your computer or start it up, basically the Mac is going to start pulling all of the resources, and it's just going to grab the first camera it sees. So you're not always going to get the same camera, assigned to the same spot. And the camera switcher makes it great because all you have to do is go into the camera switcher and adjust, which camera is associated with camera A, camera B, and all your scenes straighten out. Where in the old days, some people would have hundreds of scenes, and when the cameras would get rearranged, they had to go into every single scene and readjust the camera, which was an absolute pain in the neck nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start using the camera switcher and assigning cameras A, B, and C into your scenes, it will make it much easier if things kind of get scrambled again when you restart your computer, or even when you send something to somebody else. It makes it very easy for them to assign cameras.
Yeah, and
We
that's
have
particularly like infamous for the Camlink 4K users like myself. If you have more than one Camlink 4K, they all use the same exact like source code. So when it gets booted up, the computer, even if it's in the same exact position, will not know which one's which because they're like identical twins with the same face and the same social security number. So it's like there's no distinction whatsoever. So it's a good practice to deal with the AB cameras and just always take a look because it will trickle down to all of the scenes accordingly.
Yep.
Right. And I want to share some love for Michelle and Anthony in the chat. Michelle saying that she loves the camera profile place cards, especially when her cam looks decide that they want to play musical chairs. And Anthony saying that's great for me to give me more looks. Yes, that's exactly one of the best reasons those of us with fewer cameras can use that feature for, which is excellent. And see, George has a question. Let's see if you guys have a question. Did you already address that?
No, I was going to say, Luis, I'll let you grab that one.
Is there an alternative or a better option to the cam link? Before you answer that, Lewis, I will chime in and say, I don't know about a better one, but I have certainly tried a worse one. So I would definitely, in the beginning thinking budget, like, let me try these things before I spend too much money. I did use a generic one that was maybe $40 instead of $129. And it did a decent job with my camera, but not as good as the cam link. And then I was having problems with connecting it to other things, like connecting my other computer into Ecamm, which is a new thing that I've just been experimenting with. It doesn't give as high resolution of an image as the cam link itself does. So when quality matters, I would say don't go with the lesser ones. But back to you, Lewis, because I don't know if there is a competitor or something better.
On alternative, there are, but would I actually consider it better? No, because I would probably be using it, right? I'm using the Cam Links even right now, even though it's a bit older tech, because the fact that it's still the best quality or the highest quality that you can get out of a mirrorless camera or any type of camera that you're outputting via HDMI. Now, there's a lot of cameras right now that have the built-in USB-C transfer that some of the newer cameras are getting hip to the needs of the creators. So knowing that a
Yes,
lot of
which would
people
be
are going,
fabulous.
yeah, but the thing is that using that cable to power the camera and at the same time transfer audio and video from the camera to your computer so that you can utilize it on a live stream tends to cap it out at like 720p for a lot of these entry level cameras. And some of them do 1080. The ones that do 4K, if that's the resolution that you want, usually even right now are still kind of limited to about 15 frames per second of continuously good feeds because of the limitations of the cable and that connection as of right now. If
Mm.
the cameras start getting Thunderbolt 4 in the future with 40 megabits transfer, then things will definitely change as far as that. But right now, the Camlink is still kind of the best option. Now, there are other options out there like the the Rode Streamer X, I believe, which is kind of like a really shrunken down audio creative, like streamer gamer type of device that has a built-in video capture card that also will transfer at the 4K 30. And there's other competitors out there that are doing the same thing as the Camlink. But for my money's worth, I will still go with the originator of it, even though there's some that are still trying to catch up for the 4K imagery, if that's what you're trying to get. And just to finish that off, I have one right here, as you can see. These are
That's the
the
same one.
less expensive
That's the
video
same one I
capture
have.
cards, right? And what the this kind of tricks you on is that it tells you, hey, you can do 4K, right, out of the box with this video capture card. What it does is that it's able to receive a 4K image from your camera. But once it does its translation and sends it to your computer, the max resolution that you can get with the less expensive ones is 1080p. So the camera's output, no matter what quality you're getting out of it, will be capped at 1080p when you're using the lesser expensive capture cards. So if
Can
you
you
want
put that
full
can you put
quality,
that capture card on the screen again one more time, please, Luis?
yes.
See, guys, this wrong answer. Wrong answer. Do not use that one unless you're okay with lesser quality, right?
Well,
If you're okay with that, then yes.
and they have also had a habit of kind of dying. I know people that were using that, and then all of a sudden it stopped working. The biggest complaint people have about the Cam Link is the fact that it's been out for years and it's never been updated. Nothing's been done to improve it. I know some people that have gotten an external housing and put like a video card. Doc has talked about this so that they can connect multiple cameras to it. So some people are going that route. There's a price tag associated with all this stuff. So it kind of depends on what you have in your budget. I use Cam Links and haven't really had any problem with them. They've done quite well.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
you said it best because there's advantages and disadvantages because if you're connecting four cameras, that box or the whole setup is ideal for ease and convenience. But at the same time, like right now that we're always talking about, I'm getting ready for Creator Camp. And in doing
So
so,
am
I'm
I.
creating my mobile setup. And when I want to go on the road mobile and I still want the highest quality, I'm still able to carry around a small little Camlink 4K in my setup to make sure that I'm
Yep.
getting the highest quality while I'm on the road, which would not be as easy with the bigger units.
Hmm.
Yep.
Let me come back to
Exactly.
the chat for a quick second. We have Jeremy, Rainy Cajun in the house, David Hunt. We already said hi to Michelle, Roy, Tech Troublemaker. What's up, Roy? And let's see. Aubrey and Michelle, and Jeremy mentioned, Rainy Cajun, one of the issues with the camera switcher is no unique identifiers, and that's
Yeah, that
the issue
was
with the cam link. They are all going to say cam link 4K. So definitely I agree with him. That part is a bit tricky. My other complaint is that USB ports are precious, right? That space is super precious. We only have so many. And when I plug in my cam link, it takes up so much space in the back of my Mac Mini that I lose one USB port because it's so big. I can't, there's two spaces there and I can't pop it in. Do you have a
I'm good.
solution for me, Luis?
Yes,
Oh my
yes.
gosh.
Because this is the
Hallelujah.
whole thing.
Thank you, God.
Most people don't pay attention to this because when they open up their cam link, they're so excited because it's sitting there in the box that all they do is pull out the cam link and they go
Uh-huh.
and plug it into their computer. If you
OMG.
were to remove the box behind the cam link, there's an extension cable that comes with it. And that extension cable is particular to high speed access to make sure that it still transfers 4K because not all cables are created equal. Okay.
Yep.
And that, what it does is it gives you the ability to plug that into your computer so that it only consumes one USB location, and then you plug the cam link to the other end, and it also removes the weight and pressure that you'd be putting on your USB port with the heavy cam link directly on it. So it relieves that pressure and gives you the space to still utilize your other USB slots next to it.
Cannot thank you enough because
And
I
if
honestly did not know that.
and if you threw the box away, you can get those little extensions on Amazon. The thing that you want to make sure is that they are 4K compatible, that it's going to pass the full video thing across, that you don't end up getting, reducing your quality by getting a poor cable or not working at all.
You can
I
tell
did not throw my box
the
away. I'm going to go look for the box as soon as we're done today.
look, even Michelle saying like the cord is in the box. You see, like because those who've been running out and using these cam links for a while, we've been through it all, so we know about that cable. It's life.
Yeah,
and
I've
and
learned when I unpack something that I like to tear everything out, look under every nook and cranny, and because I frequently found some hidden gems in there. It's like, oh, I didn't know that was in there.
Logitech
and
keyboards were famous for that. That you would
Yes.
throw away the box and the little dongle was on the lip of the box, and you'd be like, I can't find it.
what?
So
Yeah.
But Luis, Roy, Tech Troublemaker, he also uses the Rode Streamer X as his capture card. So it's nice. It's nice to know that there are options, and hopefully there will be some updates, at least to be able to name them something different or to have a custom naming convention for them or something like
And some people will think, "Oh, black magic," because, it can support multiple camera inputs and all this other stuff, and they'll decide to go, down that right, which works. But the problem when you go to a black magic is all the camera switching is done inside the black magic, the ATEM Mini and stuff like that. It's not in the so what gets sent to Ecamm is one camera feed. So you cannot switch scenes with an ATEM Mini in Ecamm because it only sees, what's coming from the ATEM Mini. So anytime you want to switch camera angles or cameras or different things like that, you have to do it on the ATEM Mini. You can't program that into your scenes. So while it works, that's one of the caveats that you have to be aware of, because you're losing some of the capability that Ecamm has built into it by doing something like that.
and
And if any of you
when
guys
Paul
in the
says the
chat,
black magic, he's talking about the ATEM Mini and the ATEM Mini Pro switchers that are capped off, a lot of them at 1080p.
1080.
So it's like
Yep.
using the cheaper version of those video capture cards,
Yep.
because no matter what cameras you connect to it, you're only going to get 1080p out of it. And like he referenced, that you're only going to get that one feed. So for my live stream, I have a particular scene where I have two camera angles being shown at the same time, my front facing and my side view kind of like overlapping each other. And that is not possible with the ATEM Mini devices because you're only receiving one feed from the device, no matter how many cameras or items you have connected to it.
Yeah, I mean,
And
when you start looking at alternate solutions for things, you know, sometimes you see something that's like, "Oh, this is gonna be great," "I'll just get this." But you need to stop and think for a little bit, and you need to do a little bit more thorough investigation and check all the specs and stuff like that, as Louise said, because you may be using an ATEM Mini to bring feeds in thinking, "Oh, great, I can have multiple camera connections," which, yes, you can. But what you've done is you've now given away the flexibility of Ecamm, and you've also turned yourself to 1080. And so you need to check those kinds of things before you push that buy button to make sure it's really going to meet your needs. And the other thing I highly suggest is ask somebody in the community, I'm thinking about getting this for such and such and such. What do you think? And you'll get feedback from people. And then you can kind of use that feedback to make your own decision. But
that's exactly
I've done it
my
many
point.
times. I've bought stuff, thinking I saw it. I didn't look at it too much. It was just somebody said something, "Oh, this is great," and all this stuff. And I just pushed the buy button. And then the next thing I got it, it was like, it's nice, but it doesn't work for what I wanted it to do. So,
That's exactly what I want to agree with you about, Paul, is that our community is a great place. I mean, I've said it many times, like audio is still something that I'm working on learning. It doesn't come as easily to me as visual, but we have a community of experts who really understand this, who are willing. And don't be discouraged if you do ask a question or post something and nobody answers. You guys know how it is. It's so hard. Sometimes you don't see them depending on the day, the time. Just try again. Don't give up. You know that this community is awesome and warm and welcoming and is willing to help. And you can start to knock on some doors. And speaking of awesome people in our community, we have JP High Tech and Rabbi David Paskin in the house too, with some comments about the Cam link. And see, Rabbi is saying he uses a TregeLink 2x2, which takes in two sources and sends two into the computer via one USB. Don't worry if this is going over your head. Anybody in the chat's a little over my head too, but Rabbi David Paskin is quite a tech pro and has lots of great content on his channel to share in that too. But there's another resource for those of you guys who are looking into that you can explore.
Yeah, look at that.
so
And then we have, let's see, a comment from Business Growth Ready. The USB lead also moves the cam link away from the computer, which aids in cooling a little bit. I
yes,
like that. I
yes.
like that. Nice, nice. Good point there. Business Growth Ready. And Glenda, so sweet, Glenda. She's saying there has been so much great info here today. Just want to say thank you so much. Our
Yeah,
pleasure. And
and
hopefully this helps you.
the other thing with connecting, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'll just get a hub and plug my cam links into that." You know, all hubs are not created equal. So if you're going to go to the bottom, if you're going to go to the point of getting a hub or a dock or something like that, you want to get one that basically has a power brick. It's not just a little plug that plugs into the wall. You're not going to get enough power. And cam links take power. And people will get one of these little USB hub things that just plugs into their Mac and starts plugging cam links and other stuff into it, and it doesn't work. And that's because it doesn't have enough power to support the cam link to make it work. So what I recommend is, you can get docks, and there's like the CalDigit Element Hub, and there's other versions of that out there. When you use like an Element Hub, if you plug it into a Thunderbolt port on your Mac, it's creating 4 or multiple Thunderbolts on that cam link. Sometimes when you plug a hub into a computer, into the Mac, it does not replicate multiple, Thunderbolt ports. It's just one port and it just splits it out. So you're diminishing the power of it. So you need to kind of keep those types of things. And if you have a dock and a hub, you want to plug your dock into the hub. But if you're going to go to the point that you need extra space, I would highly recommend spending the additional money and getting a true powered hub or powered dock, because that way it's going to be able to support, the stuff that you plug it in. And a big thing that I would highly recommend is do not plug anything that is connected to your computer that is not needed to do something. So don't plug your phone in there just to charge it, or your earbuds or anything like that just to charge it because it's there. That's taking resources and power from your Mac that it needs to do other stuff. Buy a separate charger for those kinds of things. Only plug stuff in that you're actually going to be using it for streaming or purposes of whatever you're doing with your Mac.
Yeah. So once you've got the profile thing under control and you're like me in that growth stage where it's like, okay, I'm running out of ports, I'm running out of space. I agree with Paul. It's great to, and I'm at exactly that point. Like I did buy one that wasn't cheap, but I don't think is the right one for me. I actually need a couple more USB ports. So I'm at that stage, and I'm also gearing up for the end of the year sales coming up on lots of this tech stuff. I want to give a little hello to Homesick Mac, David, and Lee, who are in the chat making some comments as well. So the other thing I love about this community, right, is that it is completely okay to have different opinions and share different perspectives on what's working, not working, and different use cases and experiences. So thank you so much, everybody, for those chats, comments, and Kali. Y'all are doing a great job, super informative and actionable. Thank you
And
very
we're
much.
we're at the
Very
top of
sweet.
the hour.
Yep, we are there. So I just checked over the questions, to see if we had answered pretty much all of them. There was just one that came really early from here. Let me make sure. From my favorite tech, it says that he tried streaming his son's football game, and he realized he had zero internet on his hotspot. So I'm not sure. I'm guessing that this is an external hotspot. We'll move on. It says I can only use my phone to go live. Is there a way to use iPhone to stream? Well, with Ecamm, there is no way because there's no application to be installed onto phones or iPads. This is only a Mac only type of um, uh, program. But what
Computer.
you can do, which a lot of people don't know, and this is just pro tip, if you have hotspot capabilities to be shared as a hotspot on your phone, then
Hmm.
it works the same whether it's cable. Actually, let me correct myself. It doesn't work the same as far as the quality if you're using it as a wireless hotspot to a wired hotspot. So I'm not sure exactly the environment, but what you can do is connect your iPhone to your computer through a cable and then turn the hotspot on your phone, giving your computer, maybe in this case a laptop, access to
Hmm.
the internet through your phone.
So,
Yep.
Luis, to clarify, then my fave tech, if he had to do this all over again, we all know how to go to our settings to turn on the hotspot for sharing wirelessly. So we just do the same steps, just this time connecting it to our
Exactly.
computer.
You're going
So
to
Look
do
at
the
the
that.
only
same
Yep.
difference is
steps,
the
and the
cable.
computer, your Mac computer, will recognize it and saying, like, you don't need to connect to this hotspot via wireless using the
Oh.
like a slower system of connection. I can get it right from the cable. Do you want to do that? And you're like, yep. So then you're getting the max power of the modem on your phone to provide the max internet connection that you have available to your computer. And I'm
Yep.
not saying that that's gonna fix it, but if it was like limitation of access or like funds or something to the hotspot comparative to your phone, that a lot of times it's unlimited internet, check it out because it might be able to help you out in that case
Yeah,
scenario.
I've had to use my phone before to stream something one time, and I couldn't do massive 4Ks and all kinds of other stuff. I had to kind of trim down what I was doing, but I was able to stream. So, you know, test it out, go in the backyard, do if you're doing YouTube, go to a private stream or something like that,
Mhm.
and just kind of get an idea of what's going to happen. And you also have to realize it's going to depend on the areas that you go to and saturation issues. So if you were to hypothetically, if you were to go to some major concert or conference or something like that where there's lots of people using wireless, it's everybody's sharing the same amount of bandwidth. So you might
Right.
not have the same capabilities every place you go, but it will work. Just there's some limitations with it.
Yeah, but the basic information that I want to get out is that if you're going to use the internet off of your phone onto your computer, do not connect it wirelessly, connect it via your lightning cable or whatever cable
Yep.
that your phone is provided, because you're going to get, like, comparative to a wireless signal to a landline signal, you're going to maximize the power of your phone in that use case scenario.
Yeah. You get the highest bandwidth, through that rather than going wirelessly, and don't have other things connected to it.
Of
Um,
course.
some people don't,
All
some
right.
people forget about that, but yeah.
Yeah, but
Let me
guys, we
do a
did
quick
it.
summary. Let me
All
do a
right,
quick
go ahead.
summary of profiles. Is that okay? All right. So, in case you are just joining us a little late, or just to summarize to help seal in the learning, today we talked about what profiles are. We talked about the menu itself and all the different options that we have in our profile in Ecamm. And then we talked about what's included in profiles when you copy them over and what's excluded. And then when we finished that conversation, tons of great tips. My two big takeaways today are my Cam Link has that extra cable that will allow me to not lose the second USB port. Thank you very much. And then you also taught about connecting our phone hotspot instead of wirelessly only using the wire, that will actually be a more secure way to do it if when we need to.
A
And
more
what are you guys
stable
what
connection.
a more stable connection than wireless? Very good. So I think that's two great takeaways for me today. If any of you in the chat have some takeaways, can you pop those in the chat too? We'd love to see what they are. And in the meantime, Luis and Paul, what anything that you're taking away from today's conversation?
Okay, I think you covered it.
Yeah. What I took away was that Tatiana did an excellent job for being the first time here, hanging out with us on the live demo. So I just want to thank
Baptism by
you as
fire.
well. What was
Thank
that?
you very much.
I said baptism by fire. That's how
Yeah.
that's how we work.
That's how
I thought you
how
said fire hired, and I'm like, am I fired or am I hired?
trial by fire. We've all gone through it, and we want to thank you for taking the time as well and moving a couple of things around in your schedule to make this happen. So,
Absolutely. This is a pleasure and a
everyone,
joy. I love this family.
yep. I want to thank all of the Ecamm fam for hanging out with us. And
Yes.
just a reminder, if you've liked something that we said, found any of this useful, please be sure to hit the like button. It goes a long way. We want to thank you as well for taking the time and hanging out here with us. And we're not sure exactly what's going to happen next week with Doc's schedule, but we're going to figure it out, and you'll find out about it in next week's email to let you know of next week's events. So, until
You'll
then,
probably know shortly after we know. So
exactly, right? Because as soon as we figure it out, we're like, okay, let everyone else know. So, all right, everyone, thanks again, and we will see you next time.
Lots of
take
love,
care.
guys.
Bye.
Come